Tessa Bailey fans are gonna hate me for this. I'm gonna go more in depth on this next week, but I have links below if you wanna help out the people of Minneapolis as we're dealing with a lot right now. Anyway, let's just get into what I read this month and try to distract ourselves from that. The first book I read this month was Only for the Week by Natasha Bishop, and this one was really, really fun. This is plus size representation, and it was done beautifully well. We had just the most confident, beautiful, wonderful plus size woman owning her sexuality, and I love to see it. So you have Janelle, who is serving as the maid of honor for her sister's wedding. But plot twist, the groom is actually her ex-boyfriend, so that's not awkward at all. So Rome, the best man, and her end up starting a little fling, a little friends with benefits kind of situation throughout the course of the book. And obviously, this is a contemporary romance. You should know what happens. I gave this one a 4 out of 5. So what did I love about this particular book? I really loved the chemistry. I really loved the characterization. I loved the setting. I have been to Tulum, so it was really fun to have that memory come back. So yeah, this was fantastic. It is part of a series. I have not read the next book in the series yet, but I do plan on it because I did really like the writing of this particular book. What didn't I love about it? Well, some of the spice did feel a little gratuitous at times. I prefer my spice to push the story forward. Does it always have to? No. Would I call this erotica? Absolutely not. It was still definitely story forward, but it was almost like the author found ways in almost every single chapter to have them do something sexual. And while that's not inherently a bad thing, like I said, it's a wonderful story about a plus size woman embracing her sexuality with no shame whatsoever, which we love to see. It didn't always push the story forward. And so because of that, I knocked it down that half star, because otherwise this would have been a 5-star read for me. Honestly, I loved pretty much everything else about it. It was a beautiful read. I highly recommend this one. The spice level, definitely 4 out of 5. The only reason I don't put it as a 5 out of 5 is because it's not a full erotica. So there you go. Only for the week. I definitely recommend it. The next book I read was The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas, and I will say I did really enjoy this book. This one I gave a 3.5 out of 5. This one is also about a wedding where the main female character is not thrilled about going to the wedding due to her ex-boyfriend being there, but this one was a little bit different. And another destination wedding because she had to go to Spain. Basically, she's trying to pull off, like, if you've seen the movie The Wedding Date, she's kind of trying to pull that off. She's trying to find somebody to go with her to the wedding, to just act as her like date to lessen the blow of having to see her ex-boyfriend, who also used to be one of her professors, and that becomes extremely important throughout the course of this book. So yeah, the trope in this one, definitely fake dating. It was definitely a cute book. I loved, again, the characterization. I loved the chemistry between the two main characters. I did feel like that love story did build very, very nicely. And I don't feel like saying this is a spoiler at all because I feel like this is such a given, especially in traditional publishing. Video coming this month actually talking about it, but this actually has a third act breakup that I really think fits well within the story. And the author planted so many seeds throughout the course of this book to give us a very earned, I would say, earned third act breakup. So definitely really liked that. What I didn't really love about it, Aaron, the male main character, his character regresses just a tiny little bit throughout the course of the end of the book, which I just didn't feel like was fantastic. I don't like when characters regress in their character development, but it wasn't like egregious. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't like, oh, now he's the same guy he was at the beginning of the book. Certainly not. Something else I didn't really love about this particular book is the fact that it could have just been 2 books. Like, honestly, the first half of the book could have been its own confined story, whereas then the actual trip out to Spain for the wedding could have also been its own book as well. Whether or not it's the same characters and just a duology, who knows, or 2 separate stories completely. I don't know. I feel like this drug on just a little too much. I do feel like this could have either been shortened or just be 2 separate stories. Spice level out of this one is 2 out of 5 because, well, it's a slow burn. And I have definitely learned that I don't love slow burns. The next book I read was Conventionally Yours by Annabeth Albert. I really wanted to like this book. I really did. I gave this one a 3 out of 5. So this one is about 2 gaming rivals who have to travel to a convention to compete. They are invited to the convention to compete. And we're gonna get to how I feel about that part of the story in a minute. But yeah, so they have to go to the convention. Everybody else ends up not being able to go for whatever reason. So they have to go together and just the 2 of them. And it is a road trip to the convention itself. And obviously, like, they start out as rivals. They find common ground throughout the course of the book. And of course, you know, again, it's a contemporary romance. What do you want from me? I loved the idea of this book, and I didn't. I feel like the characterization was really, really good. I read it through doing the audiobook, and so obviously, like, the 2 narrators had very, very different voices. But I do feel like even if I had read this with just, you know, reading the actual physical book like this, the characters had very different voices. And sometimes that can be really, really hard to give characters such different voices with it being just, you know, obviously like the same author, obviously. I do feel like the characterization was done really well. The characters had really great different voices, and I do feel like they did find some really good common ground, and I did cheer on this couple quite a bit. What I didn't love about this book was that there was a serious lack of chemistry. I feel like they were rivals, and then all of a sudden they're both hot for each other, and it just didn't feel like a natural progression. I was cheering for them at the end because I do like a lot of the things that they put into the characterization, but I didn't think that the progression was all that natural. I felt like it went from, I really don't like you, to, oh my God, you're actually really hot. And I just didn't love that. Now, I don't go to gaming conventions, okay? For those of you who do not know me, I have gone to conventions for a long, long time. Like, we're talking, what is that, 19 years this year? I've been going to conventions since 2007. So a very, very long time. And I have worked conventions. I have specifically worked guest relations. I ran a guest relations, 2 different guest relations departments at 2 different conventions. And I didn't like the convention aspect. Now, if gaming conventions are just inherently different than like anime conventions, which I've been to and have staffed, or multi-genre conventions, which I have gone to and staffed, unless gaming conventions are different, the road trip should not have happened. I feel like the author really doesn't know how staffing a convention works or how guest relations tends to work. When you are invited to a convention, your travel is paid for. If you choose to drive, that's your choice and you're reimbursed for that. But they're like, I don't know how we can afford it. I don't know how we can make this happen. Like, it did not feel right to somebody who has staffed many conventions. Now, again, I've never been to a gaming convention, so I cannot speak to a gaming convention. However, that being said, perhaps a little education, if that is how gaming conventions tend to work, that the people they invite to compete don't get, you know, travel and room and board and all that stuff that, you know, guests at all the other kinds of conventions that I have staffed do. I do feel like a little education about how that process works would have gone a very, very long way in this particular book. I know it felt very info dumpy, but there are ways that they could have done it and it just didn't happen. And so it threw me out of the book. It genuinely just did. Right at the beginning, threw me out. I was like, but that's not how conventions work. And I couldn't get past it. Didn't love it. I wanted to, I couldn't. Anyway, yeah. Spice level out of this one, 1 out of 5. And that's not because it's not good spice, it's fine. But it is just, it's a slow burn. And not only that, but if you're reading books for spice, this is not a book you'll want to read, I'll be honest. Next, I read It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. So this is my second Tessa Bailey book that I have read now, and definitely liked this one better. I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5. We have Piper, who is an heiress who lives in Los Angeles, and she gets into some trouble and is cut off and has to go and live in this small town in Washington where she was originally born, where her mother had moved from after losing her father. And so she has to go there completely cut off, no money. She has to make her own way. And her sister Hannah goes with her to keep her company and stuff like that, which leads into another book that I read this month, which we'll get to. But she ends up meeting Brendan, our male main character. So it is your very common big city girl meets small town guy and gives up the big city and glitz and glamour for her small town guy. So, I mean, very, very common kind of trope, and that inherently isn't a bad thing. I thought that this one was done very, very well. I do feel like this one was very interesting, and I feel like the characterization was really good. All in all, it was just done very, very well. What I didn't love about it was it felt very head hoppy. I have found this with all 3 Tessa Bailey books I've read so far. Again, we're getting to the other one. We'll talk about it, but I feel like it's very, very head hoppy. I don't know if it's because it's told in 3rd person, which I have definitely learned that I prefer 1st person for sure. Like, I wasn't always entirely sure. I know that I tend to read 1st person, but now that I'm reading some 3rd person romance, I definitely prefer 1st person. But yeah, this felt very head hoppy. I was kind of confused from time to time whose point of view we were in, like whose head we were in, because it felt like at one point we were in Piper's and then we jump over to Brendan's, and it just, I don't know, it felt very head hoppy. Didn't love it. And like I said, I just prefer 1st person. So spice level out of this one, 3 out of 5. I wouldn't call it like overly spicy. This has definitely got a lot of spice in it, but it's not like super gratuitous spice, and it's certainly not erotica. So there you go. Then I read Well Met by Jen Deluca. So this has been sitting on my shelf for a very long time. So we have Emily, who has moved to a small town to help take care of her sister after an injury, and she ends up getting roped up into a Ren fair with her niece because her niece is too young to do it by herself, so she has to have an adult chaperone. So she has to go to the Ren fair, where she meets Simon, who is kind of an asshole to her at first, and so they kind of butt heads at first a little bit, and then throughout the course of doing Ren Fest, obviously, like, sorry, in Minnesota we call it Ren Fest, so that's what I'm gonna go with. Anyway, she learns a lot about his history and his history with this Renfest, and specifically like about his brother and things like that. They find common ground, and obviously, again, it's a contemporary romance. What do you want from me? What did I love about this book? I loved the fact that it was set at a Renfest. I've actually never been to a Renfest, but I have friends that work them. And so I have learned a lot about Renfests through them, or the Renfest here in Minnesota through them. And it was really fun to kind of dive into this world a little bit. I liked the setting, and I thought the characters were pretty interesting. And I love anytime we have people who don't like each other at first and then eventually falling in love with each other. I genuinely love any kind of hate to love in any way, shape, or form. So I love to see it. What didn't I love about this book? Simon regressed almost entirely. And it was hidden behind the idea that, well, that version of me is Renfest version of me. This version of me is the real me. And I'm like, dude, then who is she supposed to love? I stopped cheering for this couple at the end, and I didn't like it. I mean, this is actually the first in, I believe, a trilogy. I don't know if I'm going to read the rest of them because I didn't really like how this one ended. Now, can I judge one book to judge the entire series? Probably not. But given the fact that this character regressed almost completely at the end, didn't love it. Didn't love it. I don't recommend this one, honestly. Spice level out of this one, 2 out of 5. It's not as much of a slow burn as some other ones, but it's definitely still a slow burn. And again, inherently not a bad thing. I'm not a slow burn person. I like it to be a little bit faster than that. If we're focused on like when the spice should start in a book, which to be fair, you don't have to have spice in a book. That's another video that I am planning in the future, talking about spice in books and things like that. But if we're gonna have spice in a book, I want it to be about halfway through. Personally, if it's gonna be like a slow-ish burn, I'd like it to be about halfway through, and this happened well after that. So it's not my thing. But if you love it, if you like slow burn, hop on in. I loved it. It's, I'm sure, great for a slow burn, just not my thing. And then the final book that I read this month is Hook, Line, and Sinker, which is the sequel to It Happened One Summer, and it's again by Tessa Bailey. So this one follows Hannah, Piper's sister, younger sister, as she is trying to get with this producer that she has been enamored with for many, many years, and she convinces him to film this movie in the small town in Washington so she can see her sister. And so she's back in the small town in Washington, where she runs into Fox, who is Brendan's best friend. And they developed, a pretty decent friendship while she was there before, while Piper was falling in love with Brendan. They developed a really good friendship where it was almost like brother and sister in a way, but I kind of caught on towards the end of It Happened One Summer that clearly the next book is about them. And I wasn't wrong. So we have Fox, who kind of becomes her friend, her friendly face, things like that. And they develop feelings for each other. where she starts to give up on the producer, starts to realize that the man she really wants is Fox, and he's really just a hookup guy. So he literally tells her, you can't fall in love with me, I'm a hookup guy. And so there you go. Hookup guy and not hookup girl fall in love with each other, and of course he stops being a hookup guy. I felt like the epilogue was really weird. It jumped forward like 10 years. So I'm like, man, that feels like a big jump forward. This one I gave a star rating of a 3.5. So it wasn't terrible, but wasn't great. So what did I love about this book? I loved stepping back into this world. Like, I really genuinely love this little town. I love the people in it. I loved learning more about like the fishing world, because it did feel like Tessa Bailey did some research or maybe has experience with people that are like deep sea fish, you know, fishermen that go out for weeks at a time on ships and stuff like that to get their fish and stuff. So I did feel like that was really fun to learn more about. And I really like the characters. I do like Fox a lot. I think Fox is probably my favorite guy that Tessa Bailey has written so far. So that says something. Again, much like I talked about with It Happened One Summer, I didn't really love the fact that it felt very head hoppy. Again, I don't love romance stories being written in third person. I've learned this now. It's not like I didn't like this one. I liked it just fine, but I don't know, I got bored. Much like Fangirl Down. I remember getting very bored during Fangirl Down and starting to be like, I'm less into this. My mental health has been struggling the last portion of this month quite a bit. You might know why if you're paying attention to the news. So it was really, really hard to stay engrossed in this book, and I did hit a little bit of a reading slump during it. So I don't know if that might be why I felt bored during it, if I just lost interest, because I could have even read another book after I finished this one. I just didn't want to. So I took a few days off after this because I had no interest in continuing to read. I don't know if it was caused by everything going on around me or if this book just wasn't my thing and I got bored throughout it. I don't know. I really can't tell you which one it is. But either way, I got bored during this book, and you should never feel bored during a book. As far as spice is concerned, this one was a 3 out of 5. I feel like it is, again, much like its predecessor, it has some good spice in it. Definitely has good spice. This one is definitely more of a slow burn, I think, but not like painfully slow burn, you know? Like some of the others I read this month. So there you have it. All the books I read this month, which is 6, which me even just like 3 years ago would have been thinking that's insane. Audiobooks are a great invention. And I'm so glad I've learned how to enjoy them because I used to not be able to enjoy them. So anyway, there you go. These are the books I read. Let me know what you guys read in the comments and what was your favorite and least favorite book this month. I would definitely say my favorite was Only for the Week, and my least favorite was Conventionally Yours. So let me know your favorite and least favorite in the comments, and let me know if you've read any of these books, and let me know what you think about them, because obviously enjoying things is very subjective. So if you enjoyed some of the books that I didn't, I want to know what you loved about them, because that will make me happy. So I'll see you all next time. Bye.